Okay, the Maths Professor is back for part 2 of today's exciting May 1st lecture. As you remember, we were in the middle of the exciting Chapter 7, Involvement. And all right, forget it. I'm not going to show you the actual how will you motivate people thing. You have your books, you could read that. Starts on page 151. An esteemed Toyota sensei asked me this many years ago. Sensei is the Japanese word for teacher. Being a young, somewhat thick engineer and manager, I failed to grasp the question's significance. My core mental models included improvement entails smart people, just like me, developing cunning strategies and telling people what to do. I learned the hard way that plans are lifeless unless the team wants to implement them. Why should they want to? Improvement is hard and change hurts. By contrast, doing nothing is easy. So how does a leader motivate people to do extraordinary things? Here's what I've found. Safety and security are job one. If people don't feel secure in their jobs, forget it. Safety is the first mantra at great companies, and that means both physical and psychological safety. As Deming said in his famous 14 points, first, we drive out fear. Noble goals. People want to be involved in something bigger than themselves. No man is an island, said the poet John Donne, and people will die for a noble idea, a just cause. Great leaders are storytellers who frame the challenge in a compelling narrative. Team members thereby feel they are building a cathedral, not simply cutting stone. Simple decency and the great virtues. The great virtues are enduring standards of ethical behavior. In Chapter 3, we learned that standards are important in management because they make problems visible. The same is true of ethical standards. Simple decency and great virtues allow people to relax, which unleashes their creativity. Advances in brain imaging technology support these observations. Under stress, our prefrontal cortex, the brain's managerial center, shuts down. Our old reptilian limbic brain starts firing, triggering fight or flight or other thoughtless responses. In other words, fear makes us stupid. Deming intuited this decades ago in one of his 14 points. Drive fear out of the organization. Oh, well, I should have read this more closely when I read it before. When we're relaxed, by contrast, the prefrontal cortex lights up like a proverbial Christmas tree. Safety, noble goals, and simple decency are simply good business. Great organizations, those that have prospered for generations, understand this in their marrow. For more on the great virtues, please refer to Reflections of a Business Nomad by Pascal Dennis. Strangely enough, that is the author of our book. Oh, self-promoting. I can't believe this. All right, actually I can believe it quite easily. Okay, so again, we have to sneak up on improvement and not stress out the people who are going to have to come up with changes and implement changes. Sorry for that brief disappearance. I had to check that the camera was recording properly. All right. So, practical Kaizen training. Generally, Kaizen training is a week-long activity, and we have objectives of team member and supervisor training with improvement of a specific process as part of that training. The trigger for that practical Kaizen training is, as we've talked about before, a manager with a problem. So, an individual practical Kaizen training has 3 to 4 team members in that training. Sometimes we'll have a practical Kaizen training event with several teams and several practical Kaizen training instructors or advisors, right? So in other words, we don't want to have 57 people and you have one teacher, right? We want to have a few enough per teacher that people can learn, they can question, they can work together with it. The time allocation for an event of this nature is 1.5 days of training, 3 days on the shop floor actually doing a simple event, and half a day presenting the results to management. I prefer the model of management and the shop personnel, but in some cases that's not going to be a realistic situation. Again, the practical Kaizen training team should make changes, and preferably they are physical changes that show that something has been done. The training should include MUDA, the 8 wastes or the 13 wastes or the 7 zeros, however your organization classifies those wastes. In standard work and in Kaizen, which is to say, what are the kinds of Kaizen, what would be done in the different events, etc. All right, so key factors for practical Kaizen training success. The first is communication. When we're going in to do a Kaizen event, first of all, we want everyone to know, right? This is going to be a showplace event. So we want to make sure the workers know, and if there are more than one shift, we want everyone on all shifts to know. I have had the fun of going in on the graveyard shift to teach lean to the workers of the graveyard shift. The supervisors on all shifts, you want to discuss the objectives of the particular Kaizen event that's going to happen within it. We have to worry about what are the ideas of the team members and help them develop those. And our proposed changes must be confirmed with all shifts. That we're not going to make a change and only the first shift likes it, and second and third shifts are like, those first shift bastards, what have they done to me? All right, part of what people have to learn in their practical Kaizen training is how to grasp the situation. I'm an old enough hand at industrial engineering and work in general that I can look in the door of a shop and I can tell you pretty accurately whether it's an efficient, happy shop or an inefficient and desperately in need of help shop. We want to measure the cycle times of what we're looking at. Right? As y'all know, I am a big advocate of using videotape or video capture. We don't really use tape so much anymore as we use SD cards, etc. Capturing what is happening and then analyzing and creating a work standard from that. We want to know what is the work in process on the shop floor, what is the machine performance, how fast can it do its job, how often does it break down, how often does it need maintenance, etc. We want to check what is happening against the existing standard work and anything else that comes up, safety situations, obvious quality problems, etc. All right, we want problem solving, but when we come up with solutions, we need to confirm the actions using the plan, do, check, act cycle that Deming invented. We want that to be based on observation and measurement and not just, oh, I heard about this and let's do this. We may have to teach our Kaizen event team members the scientific method when we do this. All right, so what is the role of the supervisor in this? Well, first of all, the supervisor is the key to our lean success. We're going to expect them to lead Kaizen events. We want them to be able to show Kaizen leadership, telling the team members what to do, showing the team members how it's done, doing it with the team members, and then letting the team members demonstrate it back and spur their learning by asking questions. A big part of being able to do successful lean is to have suggestion programs. Toyota estimates, at the last time I knew, that they had used over 10 million suggestions in the time that they were doing lean. So an effective suggestion program channels the ideas to management, rewards team member initiative, has the overriding goal of engaging every person Um, and in um, addition, successful suggestion programs are a hassle-free process, have quick decision-making and feedback to team members. They have fairness, they are promoted, and they have rewards for intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And we'll talk a little bit later about what is intrinsic and what is extrinsic motivation. All right, so that hassle-free process has clear rules that are simple enough to understand. It has a standard for how long it takes to turn around a suggestion once it's been turned in, and what are the rewards for suggestions. Some scoring suggestions are awarding benefit points, or should it be cash for benefit points or gift vouchers? Exactly how does that work? The best suggestion form is only going to be 1 page long. Should ask, what is the source of the information? In other words, who's the person turning this in? Should have suggestion topics that speak clearly to safety, quality, cost control, productivity, space, or environment. You might possibly have a topic which is other. Should describe our current situation, should describe the suggested changes that could be made through a Kaizen event. What are the results of Kaizen? That could be previous Kaizen or what you expect the results of this Kaizen to be. And any data that supports the results you anticipate. All right, so suggestions fall in 2 categories, tangible and intangible. In tangible suggestions, they are going to have documented savings. It could be cost savings, it could be, it could be non-labor savings, could be labor savings, could be reducing the ergonomic burden, and it is possible to quantify how much savings you get from that. And space savings. We usually have some kind of overhead cost which is charged by the square foot for our facility. If you free up 100 square feet, what is that going to mean in savings in overhead to that department? All right, excuse me 1 minute. I have to plug in my phone so I can call these people back when I'm done with this video. Of course, the last time I plugged my phone into the computer to charge it, I ended up leaving it overnight, and I was very worried that someone might want to call me. But as it turned out, the next day I got to my office, no one had called me. I have never been so insulted in my life. All right. Intangible suggestions. Well, there are no direct savings. So that might be safety. Safety savings are very hard to quantify. Might be quality. How can we tell how much the customers will enjoy our product more if there's an increase in quality? 5S, actually we should be able to measure improved productivity and environmental improvement. All right, part of it should be that we have quick decision making and feedback. So again, we want to respond in a standard time period, right? Somebody puts in a suggestion, they know the suggestions committee will get back to them in a week or 2 weeks, something like that. Make that time period short though. If the time period is 6 months, oh, forget it. People are going to have forgotten they even made a suggestion by then. Our evaluators of the suggestions assess the suggestions and recommend the recognitions for people who have made the suggestions as a result. The author suggests that we should also recognize the evaluators. All right, so in fairness, there are situations where some departments will have an unfair advantage. For example, maintenance, because they're floating around, they may see more things that need fixing. So we try to balance between our departments. Or possibly balance. That sounds like something Winston Churchill would say. Except that, of course, he's been dead since sometime in the 1960s. We want to promote our suggestion program. So we can do that on report boards. We can do that with dinners. We want to make sure that we have regular reporting and feedback to management about our suggestion program. And what are some relevant measurements that we can make? Well, there's total number of suggestions, suggestions per team member, the supervisor participation percentage, the approval ratio of suggestions, the number of points awarded, the average points per team member, and the percentage of intangible suggestions. But one thing we mustn't do is set any kind of quotas or goals for suggestions. This is going to evolve naturally over time. And if people see that suggestions are being taken on board and actually acted on, and people are getting credit for them, then they're going to get excited and the number of suggestions is going to pick up. And fewer of them will be of the have this company go blank itself because it's a horrible place to work, or things like that. I did work at one company where actually that was the kind of suggestions they would get, because they still had the suggestion boxes there from when the suggestion program was robust, but they didn't really act on suggestions anymore. As a result, the things that they put in the suggestion box were often, let's say, not something you could publish in the newspaper or say on the daily news. All right, so extrinsic motivations are things like cash, gifts, things from outside you that you're given. Intrinsic are the ones that give you that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. Recognition by your peers as having done something good. A contribution to a larger goal. Development of your personal leadership or other skills. Your personal growth and self-actualization. Right? These are things that will last long past the time all the cash has been spent or the gifts are gone. All right, so how do we motivate these suggestions? All right, our organization's culture must nurture with the following values. One of them is openness. I always push for transparency in organizations. There should be very few things that are secret. Mutual trust between management and workers has to be something that we're aiming for. Teamwork among workers and among management and workers is something that we really want to encourage. Of course, with Lean, we always want customer focus to be a big part of what we're doing. And training. I cannot emphasize training enough. As part of that, we should be developing a culture plan. Toyota actually has a manual or handbook on how to develop culture. When they start a new plant, they get that manual out and they're following the steps in that manual to develop a uniform Toyota culture. Now, of course, every place will have a slightly different culture, but when I heard about that, I said, man, that is one of the smartest ideas I ever heard of. This is especially important in a brown field. Look, in a green field, we have an opportunity to totally shape the culture the way we want, because everybody's new, and cultures grow by the stories that are told, the mores or values that all the people work by in the company, and by history. Well, when you have a green field, man, your history may be, okay, we opened this plant last week. You have a total chance to change the culture to be what you want. If you just leave it, though, what is going to happen? nothing useful. Now, in a brownfield, you have got your work cut out for you. You are going to be involved in an uphill fight to develop a culture that serves the purposes of the company. Because in a brownfield, we assume you go into this brownfield and you are the lean guy or you're the new plant manager, and now you have to build the culture you want. Not an easy task. So, how do our supervisors motivate involvement? Well, one thing, they can put up what bugs me boards and encourage people to put any problem, anything that is unfair, unjust, is slowing down everyone on those boards. You can have seed books in the team member areas. And this is something that I've worked with before, where we would have actually a notebook with the production control board, and every day whatever problems had come up would be put into that book as possible Kaizen events, right? And then we would analyze those books and say, well, wait a minute, this certain problem is popping up all the time. We better figure out what's going on with that. And team brainstorming. The people who work on the shop floor know a lot. They know what's wrong with what they do and probably have some pretty good ideas about how it could be fixed. Don't fall into that old mindset that young Mr. Dennis talks about, that I know the solutions, only I can. No, because if you just hand them a solution, it's going to be extremely hard to get that implemented. But you go through several lean events, you'll get closer and closer to your idea, hopefully. Okay, and another idea is monthly or quarterly themes, right? Okay, first quarter, our theme is safety. If you see anything unsafe, please put it on the What Bugs Me board. When we're looking for our suggestions, the first thing we want is quantity. We want as many suggestions as we can get. And we're going to get some pretty crazy suggestions, and some that really just aren't a practical, real possibility. So first we get a quantity. We get everyone to be giving in their suggestions. Don't throw away even the craziest looking suggestions, because sometimes you think about it and you're like, well, wait a minute. I see how we could do that and it would save us tons of money. All right, so now one thing the author suggests is having an annual culture Hoshin. Hoshin is a planning process, and he said that at Toyota they would have an annual company culture Hoshin. So part of that would be setting targets, how many Kaizen circle activity outcome targets, the number of circles completed, the number of successful Kaizens, the number of dollars saved. Could be process targets as well, the number of team members that are participating. And you eventually want everybody to be participating in Kaizen events every year. That's everybody from the plant manager down to the guy who's sweeping up the dust off the floors. Numbers of team members trained, right? We want our team members trained before they participate. The quality of the circles. Are we getting good results from our circles or not so much? The quality of our Kaizen event training. Maybe we have a little test at the end of the Kaizen event training, and we just find out how much of the training did they absorb, what do they feel they contributed, etc. And, the satisfaction of our team members from participating in Kaizen events, right? That intrinsic motivation we're constantly trying to tap into that, right? A warm feeling inside because you've helped the company, because you learned something and you know how to do something now you didn't know before. In fact, I'm praying that you're getting some of that from this class. Whether that is a vain hope or not, that's a hell of a question to begin with. Troopers, that is it for Chapter 7, Involvement. Please, if you have questions, email me. I will be posting the links to these videos on Moodle. I will be posting the latest version of this presentation also to Moodle. The outline, I mean, not just, random. And I will post your homework for this week to Moodle as well. So, please, stay safe, stay healthy, and when the fields are white with daisies, we'll meet again.